Hi friends, welcome back to the show. So with this episode, this one's going to be more towards, I want to help you build a workout program. So one of the services that I offer that is more of a one-time thing is a client reached out to me, asked me to critique what his training program was that he was writing for his girlfriend, and just wanted my 2 cents to look over it, review it, give him feedback. And it was just like a one-time thing and he just ran with it, which inspired the idea for this one. Because for someone who's been in exercise science for like schooling for 7 years and then like out applying it for like the 3, and when it comes to exercise prescription, it's easy for me to forget that this stuff isn't like common knowledge for people, and people don't know what they're doing when they are trying to build a workout program. And there's a lot of caveats and like nuances depending on what it is that you were trying to build for, building muscle, building strength, more now like leaning away from like the bodybuilding realm to almost more towards like sports performance, from enhancing and augmenting speed, dynamic work, all the different disciplines of strength and conditioning, from all the different sports, from CrossFit, Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, bodybuilding, to track and field, to football, to all the whole things. So I want to help you build a workout program by really just giving you the really big principles, the big nuggets, to not overcomplicate this. Like, I want to make this stuff be very digestible for the normal person, so then you can take this episode and just get going with it, so it's not so complicated, you don't overthink it, and you can just go off on your own. So this episode is going to be more on how you can build a workout program for yourself. So normal strength training, resistance training program. So when you hear the word resistance training, strength training, they're pretty synonymous. They're like the same words basically, because there's resistance. So whether it's just resistance between like you and your body weight with gravity, that relationship with it, you with resistance when it comes to a different modality, equipment, tool, like a barbell, dumbbell, a kettlebell, a machine, pin loaded, plate loaded, all those different things. And so when we are looking at trying to build a workout program, say you are super inspired, you found this episode, whether you follow me on other platforms or just randomly kind of got here. Hi, if you just our first time meeting. My name is Trieu. I have my Master's of Science in Exercise Physiology. I have trained clients. I have worked with people in a clinical setting, a research setting, creating content and working with people in person and online. And I train myself, like I'm prepping for my first marathon right now. I have squatted and deadlifted over 2 to 3 times body weight, competed in Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, getting ready for my first marathon, like I said. I've competed in CrossFit competitions locally and just like track and field when I was in high school. So I'm quite familiar when it comes to the application of like doing the walk and then, and then being like in the classroom setting and then in a clinical, hospital, and research, and like on the gym floor setting. So this is kind of in my bread and butter. So big picture, big picture when it comes to, say you're trying to build out your workout program, what do you need to think about first? The number one thing I tell people is you have to like it. You literally have to like it. It has to be sustainable, and you must be able to adhere to it, because we can come up with different what-if scenarios of writing the perfect workout program, but if it's not sustainable to you, like if you don't like the thing that we are programming, then it's not going to work. Or if it's just too much and doesn't make sense with the time that you have in your own schedule, then it's not going to work. So it doesn't matter how perfect the workout program is, it's not going to work unless it is somehow sustainable, adherable to you, you actually like it, and you can actually embed the workout program into your schedule. And it's not just from that point also, it's the fact that you, put into your actual schedule, but it's also recoverable for you depending on what type of work you do, whether you're in school, whether you're like a working person. Because, and this is something I'm trying to get better at, is like majority of the audience that like talk to me through here, like consume my content, are people in their 20s and 30s that are trying to get after it, who it's just that mixture of life. 20s and 30-year-olds, male and females, are pretty mixed, so thank you guys. But yeah, so first things first, adherence, sustainability. Sustainability is number one. What can we actually do? The second thing that we can get into is needs analysis. So from the NSCA, National Strength and Conditioning Association, they have this whole like exercise programming like hierarchy of how like just essential principles, and I think it's pretty good. But then there's another one that I'm looking at right now to give me some notes that's placed into like a hierarchy of a pyramid, and it looks okay too, but I'm just gonna make it my own. That kind of how I filter it when I'm making a exercise program. So with this is we got to find out what we like, and so we need to find out what's our frequency, like how much can we actually work out, and where you can meet yourself with where you're at. Like, are you able to train 5 times a week? Do you want to? What are your goals? Do you need to train 5 times a week, or can we just do 3? Are you single? Are you in school? Do you have kids? Are you working 2 jobs, building a business? What are you doing? What's your time like? Because you are a battery. Like, you only have enough energy that goes into you have one battery going into each day, and that battery is not 100% every single day, and so that battery must be used correctly. Say if you have a very cognitively intensive performance job where, like, say you go to school, or you are in medical school right now, or you're just like a very cognitively intensive work, it probably doesn't make sense for you to have a 2-hour training session in the morning of Olympic weightlifting session, high intensity, high velocity, or doing HIIT classes all the time. You're going to fry yourself mentally, and you're going to have like almost no juice left over, right? So depending on the exercise that you're doing, the mode, the modality, and the type of lifting, the conditioning, or even if you're like pairing them together, you got to take into account of how that's going to influence your energy levels and your ability to perform in all other buckets of life throughout the day, whether you were training first thing in the morning or in the evening. That's the next really big thing too. Do you want to work on the morning? Is that the best time for you? Is that what works the best? Or do you want to work on the evening? Now, if you want to work on the evening, how much stuff do you have to do throughout the day? Like, are you like by 5 o'clock, if you got to wake up at 4 and you have like 10, 12, 8 hours of stuff crammed in, will you have enough willpower, energy, or even like, do you have enough juice inside you to even do that at the end of a day? And if don't compare yourself to other people, because just because somebody can doesn't mean that like just because like you can't, or it's just you're struggling a little bit more, doesn't mean that you are any less or don't want the goals or things like that. There's a lot of things to take into account, but we're speaking like purely within training and from a programming standpoint. So the really big picture definitely is, okay, we got to find what's sustainable, and frequency. What does that frequency look like for you? How can you meet yourself with where you're at, and in the season of life that you are in? Some seasons of life you can train more because you have more time and energy and resource and attention. Some seasons you don't, and that's just the fluid, dynamic element of life. That's just how it is, and that's okay. There's some seasons where you can train 5 days a week. There's some seasons where you can only do 1 or 2 days a week, and you just check the box of physical practice by walking as much as you can. So it is what it is. So frequency, look at that. And for some people, redefining their consistency, I like to have people maybe swap out the term for committed or devoted. Those are very helpful words for people, just to build a better relationship with it. So what does consistent look like for you, and how are you going to define your success for this? So if you need to extrapolate it, maybe you can't work out exactly 3 times every single week. Maybe in 1 month, your goal is, let's see if I can work out 10 times this month. Because say week 1 of that month, your normal life. Week 2, say you're going on a trip. Week 3, you're kind of coming back on the back end of it, or you come back and you're trying to just recollect yourself and just get back to the normal rhythm of your week and try to do some catch-up stuff. And then week 4, it's back to normal again. So maybe it makes more sense in that month to front load some of the workouts and back load some of the workouts in the middle. You give yourself for that room, that buffer, and so then you don't become mentally dramatic, because you define the conditions of where you're going to work out 10 times that month, and you did it. It wasn't 3 times every single week, or 1 week was 4 to make it perfectly 10. You just front loaded. Maybe week 1 was 5, and then 2, and then like 1, and then like 4, or whatever the math is. You made it work that way. Or even if you're still building the consistency of it and try to build the habit of it, maybe for the whole year, you're like, hey, let me just work out 1 time per week for the whole year. That's 52 times. Or say at the end for a whole year, you're like, I just want to work out 100 times, and you just extrapolate that and move the chess pieces around and allocate things where they need to go. So yeah, so frequency is a really big one for you to figure out what makes the most sense for you, and then we can kind of go to the other tiers. So definitely doing that big needs analysis of like, okay, what are your goals, where are you at, how much do you need to learn still, like where are you in your like actual training age, and what can you sustainably do, forecasting what the next couple of seasons of life looks like for you for this year, for Q1, Q2, 3, and 4. What are things looking like? And maybe you have to adjust for each season. So building a workout program, you have to take like a very macro bird's eye view of it. And so that's one really big thing to take into account of like, how do you want to set up the game? And then you get to actually the fun part of building out the workout. And I know I'm kind of walking down this road on the big picture stuff a little bit more, and the whys and the sustainability, but that stuff really helps you build the foundation, the architecture around everything, so then you can build this sustainable system for yourself, and then you can just jump into it with each week, with each day, and then do your training and in a way that's very sustainable for you. You're trying to build a very sustainable engine, so then you don't become mentally dramatic. You can still make physical progress with your training, and it's very fluid and dynamic and not so rigid. There's times where rigidity is helpful, and there's times where you must be a lot more fluid, so then you can meet yourself with where you're at. So being able to hold yourself accountable while also giving grace, looking at the big picture, setting the conditions really help, because many people just look at, okay, what's the work I need to do for the next 4 weeks? What's the workout routine? Like, dude or girl, can you give me the workout routine? Don't matter what workout routine I give you, because I don't know your life. How about I give you the mindset first, and the perspectives and the big picture things first. Adopt that first, and then we'll get into this. And that really sets up the whole system. So it really helps. So, okay, say hypothetical scenario here for most people 3 times per week is awesome. Now, if you're thinking about, should I do upper lower split? Should I do chest, arms, biceps? Should I do right pinky toe, left calf? How do I want to play this? So pretty straightforward. If you're working out 3 times per week or less, full body sessions are awesome. You acquire a lot of stimulus, lots of bang for your buck. It keeps the workouts very varied, fun, enjoyable, effective, and sustainable. Awesome there, because if you happen to not be able to do day 3, you still have 2, and you were able to inject enough stimulus and touch as many muscle groups, movement patterns, and planes of motion that's possible. Boom. So figure that out. It's being like, do you want to do full body sessions? Does it fit your goals? And whatever. So yeah, full body sessions is great for anytime 3 times a week or less. Now, if you're working out 4 times per week, upper and lower splits are very favorable. There's other iterations of how you want to do these sequences, but I'm just giving you a pretty straightforward, like, short answer first to just get going. So 3 times a week or less, full body sessions. 4 times a week, then upper lower splits. Now, if you're working out 5 times or more because you have aspirations to being a bodybuilder, and take one more thing here before I go too far. The whole main big idea here is that you're just trying to build a simple strength training program. We're not jumping too far into plyometric, sports performance, all those other things, because that would make this podcast episode way too long, and I need to go into different series to give it the appropriate nuances that it needs and stuff like that. If you guys want that, we can go into that. But just a normal strength training program to build muscle, build strength, simultaneously, because they're not mutually exclusive, but we could titrate each one of those a little bit further downstream as we need to, but those are finer details I'll get into in a different episode. So now say we identified our frequency of how many times a week, a month, a year that we want or something like that. And we had that conversation of what our goals are, and we know what's sustainable for us. We want to do strength training and do a little cardio inside the gym or at home, wherever you are at, or joining a class. Okay, cool. Say, let's work with a scenario of 3 times per week. Okay, now this is where you are probably going to want to think about, Okay, so think about how much time you actually have. Now that's the next piece. So you know what days, how many times a week, the frequency, how about the time? How much time do you have to give, and how much time that you want to give? What's your windows? What's your average? Some people will say best case scenario, an hour and a half. Some people, worst case scenario, it's like 45 minutes. So I would like for you to account for somewhere in the middle. Let's plan for an hour, but take into account of you walking in, warm up, using restroom, saying hi to people, pleasantries, and then getting into your actual warm up, your workout, and then packing everything up and walking out. So definitely take into account the whole hour of what you can actually do with quality. So take into account, okay, so now say we want to work out 3 times per week, and on average, let's go with 1 hour. That's a pretty easy number there that we can use. So 1 hour per session. Awesome. Now, so if I'm a person who's working out 2 to 3 times a week, 1 hour sessions, and with that, what can I realistically do in that? Well, you probably want to warm up. Your warm up does not have to be long. It can just be 5 or 6, 7 minutes. Very short. If you have a shorter window that day, your warm up can be even shorter. But just think, you just want to get warm, get your heart rate up, and just start feeling warm and looser. Okay, after that, we definitely want to start moving in some movement pattern that is congruent to what we were actually going to be doing in the workout. And so if your workout is structured more lower body first and then upper body second, say on that day you have some hinging pattern movements. So when you think of hinging, think of a deadlift. Muscle groups, your hamstrings and your glutes are going to be activated. Now squatting movements, think normal barbell back squat or a goblet squat. Okay, your quads are going to get worked, your knees are going to bend, your ankle joint is going to bend, so then there's your calves, and then there's your quads, and then there's going to be your hips. Oh, your upper body too. And then you can kind of go downstream from there. So making sure that your warm-up is similar to what you're about to be doing when it comes to the movement pattern. So if you're going to be doing Bulgarian split squats or lunging pattern movements, it would make sense to start doing some walking lunges. Maybe get on a resistance bike and pedal for a couple of minutes to get your joints, your muscles warm, your heart rate up a little bit, you breathing a little bit more, and getting your mind right, visualizing it, and then you go and do some walking lunges, and then you can maybe load them up a little bit more. So this is where it's like, okay, first piece of the warm-up, you want to get warm, blood flowing, huffing and puffing just a little bit. Secondly, you want to start moving your joints and your muscles in the range of motion, the movement pattern, and planes of motion like that. So like if I'm going to be doing lateral lunges with weight, it probably makes sense to do some like sidewalks, banded sidewalks, or lateral lunges, just body weight itself. That's like that movement pattern. If I'm going to be doing some rotational stuff that's in the workout, let's do some body weight rotation. And then number 3 is slowly load up those movement patterns and planes of motion. So just grabbing weight, moving lighter in the warm-up and stuff before you go into the actual piece. Now you might be thinking, how many exercises should I be doing in the actual workout? Now, with you having the time constraint of 1 hour and you warming up, and like say the 5-minute leaving, packing up and leaving, using the restroom, 5 minutes coming in, doing the same thing, your warm-ups, let's say 5-ish, that's like 15 minutes out of a 1 whole hour period. That makes 45 minutes. So realistically, you have 30 to 45 minutes of actual like go time. So we got to be very intentional with this. And so if it's a full body session, I always say More isn't better, better is better. It's not a game of how many machines and exercises can you touch. It's how intentional, how purposeful, and how much intensity can we actually drive in what we're going to do to actually gain progress. So strength and muscle are very stimulus driven, meaning you got to go heavy and train hard. And when I say hard, I'm not talking about hard from like a philosophy, personal inner talk level. Yes, you won't need to give it the mental umph, but I mean more so like literally objectively intensity wise of like, hey, you got to put 100 pounds on that bar right now. Hey, go grab those 50s and start doing some lunges, because yeah, and I'll go to that next part too. So when it comes to how many exercises to actually do, say from your warm-up, do one cyclical repetitive thing from like walking incline, walking lunges, resistance bike, something cardio-esque. You know what I'm trying to say here. Very repetitive, rhythmic thing to get warm. Do 2 to 5 different mobility prep work to prepare you for the main session. So you have your prepared stuff for the main stuff, prep for the main stuff. Now it's time for the main stuff. Main stuff, think maybe you only have time for 3 to 5 exercises, because say wherever you are in your training age, you're still learning how to do the exercise itself. And so maybe if you're still learning how to do the exercise itself, maybe you can only do 3 exercises that day or up to 5. So you can break it down into movement patterns. And when it comes to movement patterns, when it comes to exercises, fundamental human movement patterns, there's push, pull, squat, hinge, lunge, rotate, carry. There's a little bit of iterations for each one of those, but when it comes to push, you're pushing something vertically, pushing something horizontally. So like a strict press or a bench press. Pulling, vertical, like a pull-up, pulling horizontally like a bent over row. And then a squatting pattern movements, hinging pattern movements like a deadlift, lunging pattern movements. There's a lot of varieties on those ones. Rotating and carrying something by another word, people call it like locomotion, but I just want to use the word carries for me. Carrying something front, side, etc. when you're moving forward. So now that we kind of figure out how many exercises can we actually do in that session by looking at the movement pattern, say like for some people, each exercise, depending on what it is, if you were doing something more barbell-like, there's going to be a lot of time that you have to account from setting up to doing it to tearing down, and almost like your rest periods too. So when it comes to like a movement pattern perspective, like a simple framework to help you build this out, I personally like to do lower body first and then upper body. So think from like, say if I had to just pick 5 movements in a session that I can appropriately do during that hour. The first one could be a lunging pattern movement, and then a squatting pattern movement, and a hinging pattern movement, and then a push pattern. Then number 5 is a pull pattern. And you can adjust that sequence however way you want. But by doing that, I'm hitting all the big movement patterns, and by doing that, I'm training a lot of muscle groups, a lot of joints, and I can tweak the planes of motion I'm moving into, and it's very favorable for a lot of people because it helps you check a lot of boxes and not leave many areas untouched. Because if you only want to do bro splits, bodybuilding splits in only 3 sessions, then you're very limited, and a lot of muscles, a lot of like joints and movement patterns aren't getting touched, because you're gonna be like, okay, arms one day, okay, chest one day, and maybe chest and back, and then legs another day. But if you look at it big picture, you only hit arms one time, chest one time, and legs one time. And when you look at it, what are the sets and reps you're actually hitting in that? And that's the volume piece. So when people talk about volume, they are talking about the reps and sets that you are doing in total in that session or week or month or the whole year. So within the micro, the meso, and the macro like sessions, and that's where the load is. So of how much load, like weight or even intensity, can you actually handle and be able to recover from? Because if you do too much too fast, you get hurt. But if you underdo it, then you're not getting enough stimulus, and we're not building any adaptation, then we're not getting any stronger, getting any more flexible, building more muscle, things like that. So within a session, look at how many movements can you actually do. Let's work off that scenario again that we are working with is 3 times a week, 1 hour sessions. Say you can do 5 movements, a lunging, a squatting, a whatever one you want to pick, just say hinging, and then a push and then a pull. So like a horizontal push and a vertical pull. So boom, there we go. We have 5 movements that we can do. Now within those, you're maybe thinking, what do I do? This is where the fun part is. You get to pick whatever exercise you want to choose now. And that's the fun part. But then you have to look at the actual time you have. And now it starts to become very clear what exercises can you actually do from a time perspective, from a what's available to you. Is the gym very busy? From a knowledge perspective, or like things like that. There's a lot of things to consider, and what sounds fun to you, and what can you do. Maybe if you are in a time crunch, maybe barbell back squatting isn't going to work because you don't have enough time to build up, set up, tear down. Maybe opting for a Smith machine because it's already pretty like set up, or you just do goblet squats. So you grab a kettlebell or dumbbell and you start squatting right there. So then you have more time for your rest and for other stuff. And now that's where the exercise selection comes in. I'm not going to go into every single exercise underneath the sun, but I do have a exercise demo movement library on my YouTube. There are almost 300 exercises on there, and they have all been categorized into different playlists, from movement patterns, from muscle groups, from planes, all that stuff. So you guys can just go in and just pick. I'm continuously adding to it, so that should help you. This is where the fill in the blank part kind of happens. And so now you might be thinking, okay, I have, what days am I going to go? Well, I have defined my frequency. I have defined how much time I have to give. I have defined what movements, patterns, and exercises, what are the reps and sets and intensity of all those things. So now this gets to the really fun stuff. And so this part, important, but least important compared to everything else I talked from the very beginning, from adherence, enjoyment, and then the frequency, and then exercise selection, and now we're going to get to the volume, intensity, rest times, tempo, things like that. And so with this, you can think of, okay, I got to be able to recover from this, and so let's choose a very linear progression. This is the progression piece right here. So there's these 3 words I want to give you, like I said earlier: microcycle, mesocycles, and macrocycles. So think of macrocycle as like a whole calendar year. Okay, all 12 months. Mesocycles, think of those as different seasons or quarters. So like the first 3, next. There's like 4 of those mesos. So let's just say that each meso is like 3 months, and then micro, and you can adjust this even more. So from a programming and an application perspective for you, it's like, okay, let's just say for the next 3, you have to define what your like different mesos are going to be. Like, what's the intention purpose for this period, the season that you are training? Say this next 3 months, I really want to focus on building more mass and strength in my legs. So it probably makes sense to have, if you're only lifting 5 movements in each session, maybe it makes more sense to have 3 out of those 5 be more lower body. Cool. So I have that, and then you can adjust the cycle and intention from each one. Okay. And so linear, within one whole month, one whole like mesocycle for a month, you can do a linear progression, being like, okay, week 1, you have this. Week 2, maybe you just turn the intensity up a little bit more each week, but you keep the reps and the volume roughly the same. And you can play around with reps and sets. I recommend anywhere between 2 to 4 sets per exercise. So that's easy way to remember that right there. Reps, you can build strength and muscle. Let's just say you can build muscle on all reps. So there's a rep continuum thing. An old school way of thinking is that anything below like 8 reps is anything below like 3 reps is only for strength, and then like 6 to 8 to 10 is like middle, and then like 10 plus or 12 plus it's like endurance. Still is some truth to that, but that's you can build strength across each one as long as you're lifting heavy enough weights. There's enough intensity and load to it. So easy way to think about this, it's like, okay, how many sets do I want to do for this exercise? Think 2 to 4. 2 to 4 sets is pretty appropriate. Reps. I like to keep it around 6 to 8, honestly. Just like a very general rule is 6 to 8 reps, because then you get to kind of tap all different elements right there. You get to, if you're feeling like you have a more umph that day, really push the strength, like strength endurance, that 6 reps, 5 reps is awesome. And then up to the 8, it's like you get a little more of the hypertrophy setting if you want to look at through that frame, or even a little more like bit of endurance with it because you're doing more reps. So, but easy programming is sets 2 to 4. Reps 6 to 8 is a great bubble range to be in. And then how long should you rest between each working set? That's going to be anywhere between 1 minute to like up to 5 minutes. And that's going to vary a whole lot depending on everybody. So average, like for me personally, I rest around 90 seconds to 2 minutes between each one of my sets, working sets. But say I am very short on time, randomly one day, normally I have like an hour, hour and a half, but I only have 30 minutes, then I might just become an every minute on the minute thing. Every 60 seconds. So like 60-second rest, next. It's not most optimal, but it's practical in that sense. So this is where you have to be able to toggle between the line. Like I said, don't have such strong beliefs that you have to only do this, otherwise it's like all or nothing. Loosely hold them, please. I do love that phrase, that principle. Strong beliefs, loosely held. Love that. And so this is where you have to toggle between it. Perfect scenario, you get to rest 2-3 minutes. Say you're really running short on time, 1 minute, boom. Or you cut out, let's say you had 5 on the dock today, you have to cut out the bottom 2 and do the first 3, and then you give it the appropriate rest. Like I said, you can play this however way you want, depending on the exact situation. So I'm just trying to give you the big principle stuff first here. So reps, 6 to 8 is that great bubble range that it's like a universal bubble range, and you can kind of alternate between each distribution end as you want. You can do less reps if you want, you can do higher reps if you want, personal preference, whatever you want to do. Like I said, with the rest, anywhere from 1 to 5. Say if you are lifting very heavy with back squats or deadlifting, those movements that are way more neurologically demanding, compound movements, multi-joint movements, those drive up the central nervous system fatigue so much more, and you just feel like you just got punched in the face so much more, like you were so tired, then you might need up to that 3 to 5 minute rest period as you climb up on the intensity ladder. But good universal rule, that 90 seconds to 2 minutes is pretty solid. But if you're short on time, maybe it's 1 minute and you just got to do it. So we talked through a lot of that. Progression, linear progression could be 1 to 3. You keep building up in weight a little bit, keep challenging yourself by 5 or 10 pounds or something like that. Or if weight isn't there, have how you can improve yourself each session, each week. Try to see if you can do the same weight, but the intensity doesn't feel as intense, and you're able to do it with more ease, or your technique has improved. Things along those lines. Find whatever observable or hidden metrics you can to help you make progress, feel the progress to keep moving forward. Whatever you can do to keep moving forward. And no rep is ever wasted. It all matters. It all helps from a strength perspective, from a hypertrophy perspective, from a motor learning perspective. Like, the skill of lifting, like lifting itself is a skill that you are continuously practicing. So that's a big one too. No rep is a bad rep. Unless you're in a competition and you only have 3 chances on the platform, then yeah, there is a bad rep in that scenario. Cool. Now, intensity. So with this one, intensity meaning how much weight should you be lifting? Kind of big. You can do percentages. That's where on a workout program you'll see it says 93.5% of your 1RM, so 1 rep max. Percentages work well for very advanced lifters in barbell strength sports like powerlifting or Olympic weightlifting. Everybody else on the other end of the fence, auto-regulation. So auto-regulation tools like RPE, rate of perceived exertion. This is you measuring yourself on a 1 to 10 scale and asking yourself, how hard was that? How hard did I work? And that can work for both cardio and lifting. RIR is the other one, reps in reserve. That stands for how many reps left do I have in a tank. That is the inverse of RPE. So 0 reps in a tank left, 1 left, 2 reps left. Say I told you to do an exercise and I said do this for 8 times, but with an RIR of 2. On that 8th rep that you're doing it, I want that one to feel like you only have 2 left in the tank until you reach complete failure, muscular failure. Muscular or technique failure. So that's something to consider too. And so intensity wise, you probably want to have your intensity around that's 7 to 8 out of 10 for RPE, RIR 2 to 3, basically close to failure. Do you have to go to failure to see progress? No, but is it okay to? Sure, definitely. You want to get close to it. Are you doing something wrong if you go to failure? No, you're not. I'm giving you very rapid fire answers here because I don't want this episode to go too far. And if you guys are liking this and there's a certain part that you want me to dive deeper into, unpack a little more, please let me know. I'd be happy to. But I'm trying to compile in a lot here in like 35 minutes here. So you get to choose intensity. Try to crank it up each week, and then say around week 4 is kind of like where people take a deload week. And a deload week is a planned, structured week where you just back off a little bit. It's by 50%, 60%, go off how you feel, honestly. So by week 4, if you feel like you don't even need a deload week, then you don't need one. Keep trucking through it. Yeah, there's no shoulds in this. Keep going through. But say you get to week 6 and 8, you kind of feeling pretty slow. You're not moving weight as fast on the velocity standpoint. Like it's not getting off like a bench press and not getting off you as fast. Squatting feels like a house. The weight feels like a house, or your legs just feel heavy, arms feel heavy, you're moving slower. You can just kind of physiologically feel that you're just moving a little slower and like not being recovered. Then look at the other buckets, but sure, from nutrition and lifestyle factors, but definitely from a training perspective, might be time for a deload. And that deload could be, like I said, 30% up to like an 80% reduction in everything, or take the whole week off. Maybe you might just need a mental deload. Just don't even train for a whole week, and that's okay too. So there's no shoulds here. Everyone operates very differently, and it's very subjective, but a lot of objective too. So you just got to be able to finesse your way through that fluidity of all of it. Because programming should be very fluid. It's not rigid. There are some rigidity to it from principles of things like that, but you should be able to move through things very dynamically and very fluidly. So now rest times, I went over that already. I went over a lot. Tempo. You want the going down, like the eccentric portion. So a muscle has 3 different contraction like speeds or types. There's the concentric. So think when you were jumping off of a box, that's the concentric because your quads are shortening. Actually, no, let me just use a bicep curl one example. So say I have a weight in front of me. I curl the weight to me. That's the concentric because the muscle is shortening. And then if I lower my fist down with the weight, that's the eccentric because the muscle is lengthening. Now if I just hold the weight in the middle, that's the isometric. There's tension within the muscle, but it's not moving in either direction. That's isometric. Great for tendons and ligaments health, holding isometric work. So that's basically training programming in a nutshell. And if you're trying to program this for yourself, pick a exercise rep scheme, volume sets, like exercise selection, like pick the exercises you want to do for that month, for that 4-week period, and then completely switch it for the next one. Like every single thing of your framework could be the same, from the reps, the intensity, the sets, the frequency, everything, the progression style, the rest periods, and the tempo. But if you just adjust, like swap in and out the exercises you choose for each month every 4 weeks, that'd be awesome. And the reason why you want to do the same exercises each week, again, we're talking a very linear path strength program, is because you are trying to practice the movement and overload it every single week if possible, so then you can adapt to it. Because say you lift a weight, say I'm doing a leg press, week 1, I did it for 8 times, okay, for 8. And say the intensity was like an 8 out of 10. The next week I do the same exact thing, but now it feels like a 6. Oh my God, I'm getting stronger. But effort-wise, you want it to still be an 8, because say that was what was prescribed. Now, you want to turn the dial up to lifting maybe 120 pounds. Now you met that same intensity level as you did the week before. Boom, there we go. You adapted, you got stronger. So fitness, honestly, is a huge scam because nothing ever gets easier. You just have to keep going harder, and then you have more weight you have, and you got to put it all away. So, hope this was all very helpful. I know I did speak very fast because I don't want this episode to go for too long, but I hope I hit the nail with the hammer on a lot of the big principles, help gave you a streamlined framework on how to build your own strength and resistance program. So yeah, I hope this was super helpful. If you haven't yet, please hit subscribe. And if you do make a workout for yourself and this does help, please let me know. But yeah, hit subscribe on wherever you are listening, from Apple Podcasts to Spotify, and sign up for my newsletter, because my newsletter is where you can find a lot of different things. I communicate with you. It's like our coffee chats. If you don't think I suck and you're listening for this long, I think I'm okay person, and I like sharing cool ideas through my newsletter and kind of let you know what I'm working on and a lot of other things. So subscribe to this podcast and sign up for my newsletter, so then I know that you guys are listening. This is helping, and stay tuned to what I have coming out, ways to work with me and build this whole thing. So yeah, thanks friends. Bye.